Gentlemen, consider the following. Underwater hockey.
Reports say there are about 50 teams that play the sport.
PP fish jerky. Almost any Quiznos commercial. Take your pick.
We love you, sons! Mozzarella and toasted garlic bread.
It's not lacking any meat. And that's what real women need.
What do these behaviors have in common, aside from showing us that free will must be real? They're unusual, kooky, unfettered by modal norms. Just like today's games. You might check these out if you also want to be unfettered. My criteria for this was visually, mechanically, or thematically different. I also tried to stay within the last 15 years and avoided anything higher than 2,000 reviews on Steam. So hopefully this is something new to most of you. My first suggestion is a solo dev work, the bizarre middle-aged fantasy tower defense game Burggeist. You'll see people say that it reminds them of WOAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAH games like Shadow of the Colossus and Ico. A couple of reasons spring to mind. It's got a more washed-out, desaturated color palette. I think it's about what you would expect for a more melancholy mood and setting. And I also think it fits really well with the story they're telling. The other reason they'll probably give is that it's dreamlike and otherworldly. What they mean is they're wondering if their neighbors are freebasing bath salts and venting fumes everywhere. The game takes place on a battlefield ruined by magic. It's a rough mesh of destroyed, impossible architecture and eerie, mysterious nonsense. The type of place where you turn the corner and are told that sometimes sheep will levitate. To be totally fair, the translation is a little rough. It makes me wonder if some of the feeling people describe, that dreamlike quality of not really being able to parse or comprehend the world around you, is because the world around you is incomprehensible. And some of that just comes from context the game assumes you already have that maybe you don't. For example, you've probably heard of the geocentric model from this era of history. In it, we understood that the Earth must be the center of the universe and everything else must revolve around it. Why else would aliens keep coming here and try to build cool things? But you probably haven't heard that a way to communicate this idea was to compare the concentric circles of the heavens to the layers of an onion. Now imagine if, instead of any of that, I just started by saying some spells come from the onion universe. You would be understandably perplexed. Let me also be honest with you. I love translations like this. They always create this force field of impenetrable hyper-literalness and uncomfortable $3 words that seem like they really shouldn't be outside the dictionary at these hours. It makes it feel like everyone must really believe what they're saying. If what they're saying is a grammatical labyrinth, how would they say it without really believing it? Believe it or not, I didn't pick Burggeist because it's hard to get a straight answer out of it. Although on second thought, making a list of games that are confusing might be kind of fun also. No, I picked Burggeist because it's a tower defense game set in an open world, where altitude directly impacts attack effectiveness. So sitting laterally by the typical place firing lines of a tower defense game, you have an eclectic ragout of movement options, jump puzzles, and the choice of not just where to move your death zone, but where to move yourself. You can play this as a typical lob job, and there are interesting toys to play with there. But I played it as Michael Jordan at the end of Space Jam 1, dunking on the Monstars from half court. I think if you can look past the occasionally spotty polish that usually comes with indie games, you'll probably find the mix of discovery, confusion, and platforming to be satisfying here. Uh-oh, it seems you've walked into a trap. To unlock the next recommendation, you'll need to answer a simple question about gaming. Can you name the 1994 Japan-only platformer about a sushi chef using a fishing rod? Keep in mind that if you can't answer this, I will have to take your real gamer card, and as a result, the rest of this video will have motion blur turned on. Well, did you say Umihara Kawase, which I put over here because I never said that this was multiple choice? No, you didn't. Don't lie. You haven't been importing games from Japan for 30 years. You're not that guy. This is not the Criterion Closet. And speaking of things you're not. No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that. Besides, why would you care about being a real gamer when you can be something better? Yourself. Billions of real gamers in the galaxy. But there's only one you. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because simple physics-based movement systems can be very, very deep, but very, very difficult to get your head around, to the point that the entire way you think becomes tethered to the central tool or mechanic. This is the case for Umihara Kawase. I quote directly from Wikipedia. masters of understatement. While the controls are simple, graceful control of the game's swinging technique will not come immediately. Wikipedia has impartiality requirements. Using the word will to express ironclad certainty is the closest thing to visceral fear a Wikipedia editor can feel. And this is a central inspiration for my next suggestion, Rusted Moss. Here we get about 5 minutes of straightforward keyboard mouse Metroidvania, before a single-use bungee cord is introduced and completely ramsacks the learning curve. The first time my progress absolutely depended on this system, I kept thinking, why are my fingers stuck? My fingers weren't stuck when I woke up this morning. Wasted platforming alone is a little bit awkward and to me not as natural as using a stick. But if you pair that with a hook that you have to aim with the mouse, you might as well be asking me to learn sign language with one hand. It would be really easy to accidentally turn a game with a movement system like this into an inescapable death march like you read about in history. But the game is really good at gradually increasing the demands on the player. For example, for the most part, only one bungee per jump is possible, which usually segments long, difficult climbs into single jumps that you can work your teeth around. It's not usually the case that I can remember the actual place in a game where a developer reached into my mind and demanded that I understand what was going on. I mean, not every game has a Waking Sands, where Koji Fox will personally savage you with the, whatever the old-timey pirate word for dictionary is. Also, as a happy coincidence, the place that I'm thinking of is inside of the 2-hour return window. I always wonder if developers try to do this kind of thing intentionally, but that's a different show. I think before you fully acquire and adapt to what the game is asking you to do, you'll look at something like this and shake your head going, jump, go forward. Once you understand though, the game only gets better and better, and soon you'll be flubbering around everywhere, busting rude, fully fictional maneuvers right in the face of the Lord's own Newtonian motion. For forcing me to relearn how to use my hands, I suggest Rusted Moss. Alright, before my last pick, I have some honorable mentions. These fall outside of the rules I set, but that's not why they're honorable mentions. I would have just broken the rules and listed them anyway. These are honorable mentions because I'm running out of time and energy, and we need to wrap this up. If you think of it in really general, really vague terms, a game is just a set of rules or constraints. We choose the constraints because we believe that the experience of following them will be enjoyable. If you wanted to go big, far upwise, you would probably just use a helicopter or a really large pogo stick. But people climb rocks because climbing rocks is fun. Implicit in this design is that the constraints make success more difficult but not impossible. A departure from this is Mossy, a puzzle platformer of handmade levels that is then randomized with a set of tools. Because of the randomization of tool sets, the game outright admits that it is fully impossible to test whether all combinations are actually beatable. I'm going to tell you a secret. This is how I feel the balance works in many roguelikes. But doing it on purpose and saying it out loud makes you the kind of weirdo that I respect. Also, the stated goal was an outright objection to lock and key design, where tools tailor-made for every situation are given to the player. Have you ever been so upset about something stupid in a game that you yourself then made a game? Fantastic. The Xenoclash series has been weird for, I'm gonna guess, 20 consecutive years. Of the titles in this video, Xenoclash is probably the strangest. They're first-person fighting games, but before any of that, they're an exploration of a fever dream from a place outside of the waking world and the dreaming world and any other world. Xenoclash is the only game I can think of where it is earnestly explained to you that peeing on yourself is a philosophical decision. The concept of self-actualization, as it was explained to me by a gruff thumb-shaped caveman in Xenoclash, is central to my identity to this very day. My last pick is FlyWrench. I can describe FlyWrench really fast. FlyWrench is like playing red light, green light, except you are the player and the red light and the green light. And to get a green light, sometimes you need to be a red light, and if there's a yellow light, you die. Purple lights are just right out. Oh, I'm sorry, did you not like that? Would you prefer what the game said? That movement self-interacts with positive reality and with enough fidelity all matter becomes a mirror? FlyWrench is for the people who thought my previous picks weren't fast enough or precise enough or bopping enough. It's for the people who've always wanted to be a piece of chalk or a hot dog. You know, the cylinderkin. This is the first time in a while I've been on the edge of my seat and screaming into the finish line of a game. FlyWrench is the thing I'm really glad I found when I decided to avoid popular games in this list. FlyWrench is great. FlyWrench's breakneck level resets on death are the reason this video is going to come to a screeching car crash style halt.